Good morning again. So I do need to say one thing. I don't know if you guys are aware, but our church is growing very quickly. And our church is growing very quickly by the cutest way possible it could ever grow. So we have had 2 babies that have been born that have not been able to come on Sunday yet. We get to see them because they have older brothers and sisters at the daycare. But we have one today that is here. So look, it's Mufasa over here. And Dalen, am I saying that right? I realized I meant to ask you. I've only seen it written down. So Dalen is over there. And then we have one more that is coming Friday, if not before. So we got 4 that kind of came in anyway. So we are that's the best way to grow. It's so cute. So I just wanted to make sure. Do not breathe on her. Do not cough near her. Do not give her a nice little bubble around, but just make sure and say hi. And we also had a wedding too. We have to announce that too. So we're just very happy that you guys are here today. We get to see you. So we have been in the book of Ruth. And hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. He just told me this, and now I'm going to call you out. Sorry. But Joe just told me that he reread the book of Ruth. And because we were in worship, I didn't get a chance to ask you, was it because of all the good pickup lines we got from Ruth? Was it because of all the good relationship advice we got from Ruth? Maybe. But if you have not been here the last few weeks, we have been looking at the book of Ruth. And we've been looking at the relationship between Ruth and Boaz, the relationship between Ruth and her mother-in-law, Naomi, and then how that reflects our relationship with God also. And I told you last week, I'm glad that those of you that were here last week came back, because I told you last week was super practical. If you were not here last week, you learned probably way more information about Mark and I's relationship than you ever wanted to know. But it was very practical last week. So you can watch that on our YouTube channel because these do kind of build on each other. But I said last week that this week was going to be a little weird. And it is. It's just, there are some things, especially those of you that are reading the Bible in a year with us, may realize this, that there are some stories, some things that come out of the Bible that are just a little weird. And this week is one of them. So, just to help us remember, Ruth was a poor Moabite woman. She was living in Moab. Her family, Naomi and her family, went to Moab, and that was a place that God told them not to go, but they went there anyway. Naomi's husband died, her 2 sons died. Ruth is her daughter-in-law who came back to Bethlehem with her. She left her family in Moab. She left her false god in Moab. She is living back in Bethlehem with Naomi, following God and doing everything she can to help her family. And it just so happens, we talked about that, just so happens a few weeks ago is actually the provision of God that we saw in her life, that she ended up gleaning, helping out, getting barley and wheat in a field that belongs to a godly landowner named Boaz. And last week, we saw kind of their first date, that he saw her, he asked her out to lunch, they went on their first date, sparks fly. I need to have like a Taylor Swift song, going, and one of the good ones, going in the background here, that, he made her laugh, everything was so great, there was no awkward silence, they left, there were butterflies, everything was perfect. But after the date, there was radio silence. Nothing happened. He completely ghosted her. There was no follow-up call. Think about our expectations today. There was no courtesy text the next morning. He didn't even follow her on Instagram. There was nothing from him. 7 weeks go by. Imagine how Ruth is feeling, because remember when she came home, Naomi was like, yeah, he's a great guy. Remember, he had money, he had land, he had all of these things, and he was helping her. Their date was great. 7 weeks go by, and nothing. So she starts to panic, and she just starts to question everything. And I don't know if this is true for men, but I feel like this is true for most women. When something happens, you just start to question everything that you did. And that's what Ruth is doing. She's thinking, did I read into this? Like, what is our relationship? Did I overshare to him talking about, my past in Moab? I had been in the fields all morning when he asked me to lunch. Should I, have run to take a shower? What did I do wrong? Why is he just ghosting me? Why is he no longer talking to me? So we have the great mother-in-law, Naomi. So she goes back to Naomi. She's questioning, because remember, Naomi's kind of the only person that she really knows at this time, because she left everybody in Moab. So Ruth is kind of talking this through with Naomi. And like most mother-in-laws, Naomi is very opinionated. I'm looking at some mother-in-laws maybe in the audience. But mother-in-laws are very opinionated. But unfortunately, Naomi wasn't always the wisest in the advice that she gives. So she goes to Ruth and she says, okay, Ruth, you haven't talked to him, you haven't heard from him for 7 weeks. It is time to have the talk, the dreaded talk where we define the relationship. Have you guys remember back when you had to have those talks, maybe with people you're with now or people that it didn't go as well? They are determining their level of commitment. Now, every relationship comes to this point at some time. Are we just friends? Are we a little bit more? Are we just casually dating? Like, what is going on with our relationship? Should we go public on social media? I have three kids that are in their early 20s, and let me tell you, this is a big, big deal. I just recently heard about the difference between a soft launch and a hard launch of a relationship. You may already know all about this, but we need to know this to go further. So I have a few pictures for you. So if you could pull up that first soft launch picture for us. So a soft launch is basically, if you can't see this, they're in this relationship. She might, post something like, "It was such a good day today." And you can see her, but there's just that mysterious hand out there. So you don't know who it's about. It's some kind of relationship, some kind of love going on, something happening, but you don't know who. As opposed to a hard launch. Let's look at that next one. The next one will show us, you see the guy, you see the girl, we're like, here we are. We're showing the world that we are together. Now, Ruth is ready. She is ready to hard launch their relationship. She is like, I want to show everybody that I am with Boaz, that we had this date, that he is giving me all this extra. Remember, he gave her that extra barley to be able to take, that we are together. But Boaz is giving her nothing at all. So this is the advice that Naomi, the not always wise mother-in-law, gives her. We're going to be in Ruth chapter 3 the whole time today. We're going to start with verses 1 and 2. One day, Ruth's mother-in-law, Naomi, said to her, "My daughter, I must find a home for you where you will be well provided for." Now remember, that sounds strange to us, but in this culture that was really important because Naomi's husband had died and Ruth's husband had died. And so in this culture, a woman by herself could not have property, could not have money, could not do all of those things. So she had to have a husband, honestly, really to be able to survive. And so when Naomi is saying that, like I said, it sounds weird to us, but it was really important. That's what she was praying for at this time. Now, Boaz is a relative of ours. Tonight, he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. So what does that mean to us? We don't really do that anymore. What does it mean to winnow barley on a threshing floor? So I have a picture of what a threshing floor looks like. And so basically, it's just kind of like a flat part that is in their field, and they bring the wheat or the barley or whatever it is, and they throw it up into the air, and part of it is taken with the wind, and part of it is kept. It separates the wheat from the chaff. Now, especially those of you who have been listening to the New Testament with us, this was in Matthew 3. You would have heard that a few weeks ago because it talks about separating the believers and the unbelievers. But this is where that comes from. But he goes down there, and it's basically seeing what their profit is. They just throw it, the wind separates it, and we see what we have left. So, Naomi, again, that we don't want to call her meddling, but that opinionated, trying to help out Ruth, that mother-in-law, gives her some strange advice. Looking at verse 3. First, she says, wash. Now, if you are going to try to meet someone that you would like to have a relationship with, that is the first piece of advice, especially if you are a teenage boy, which I see some of you in here. Wash. Make sure you are clean. Then put on perfume. Get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor. But don't let him know that you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. So she's basically saying, okay, Ruth, last time I know you had a great date, you had fun, but you were a hot mess. You were just from the fields, you were looking nasty, so let him see what you look like. You had those dirty fingernails, you were just nasty. So show him your glow up. Put on, that best fit that you have, and just go and show him what you could look like. Now, I do like this strategy. She says, now don't just go in and be like, Boaz, we need to talk. Because even if you are in a marriage, even if you are in a marriage for 26 years, do not go into your spouse and say, hey, we need to talk, if you want anything to come from that talk. She said, let him finish his food. Men listen better when they have a full belly. He'll be a little bit happier. And I think it's kind of funny. She also says, let him drink a little bit too. Because, maybe he'll be a little more receptive to what you have to say. Again, I said it's weird. And just wait, this is getting even weirder. Verses 4 through 6. This is again Naomi telling Ruth what to do. She says, when he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do. I will do whatever you say, Ruth answered. So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. What is Naomi talking about? When we read this, what is she saying? I have 2 daughters who are both single now. If they were interested in a young man, my advice would never be, get dressed up. Make sure he's eaten. Make sure he's a little drunk. and then go lay down next to him and say, what do you want to do tonight? That is not what we are going to tell our daughters. But for some reason, this is the advice that Naomi gives to Ruth. Now, I kind of looked up to see, okay, does this mean something? Because that's what we want to do whenever we are reading the Bible. We want to look at the culture at that time and see, okay, does this mean something different to them than it would to us? So I found some different possibilities. Nobody really knows exactly for sure, but some of the possibilities, it could be to uncover his feet, could be a euphemism to mean uncover just more about him, learn more about him. I honestly don't really see that because he was full and a little drunk and she was laying down beside him. I'm not sure how they're going to really have a good long discussion about life. Another one is that Naomi is telling Ruth to be aggressive, to get his attention, to make sure, it's been 7 weeks. Make sure that he has not forgotten you. And another one, and I tend to agree with this one, is that Naomi is saying to trust God's sovereignty and Boaz's integrity. We have seen God working behind the scenes with Ruth this whole time. And we have seen that Boaz is a man of character. We talked about that when we first met him. And so I tend to think that Ruth is saying, or that Naomi is saying, we know he is a good man. When you ask him what he wants you to do, he is going to protect your purity. He's not going to ask you to do something that you shouldn't be doing, because he has shown before that he is a trustworthy man. Now, like I said, we don't know exactly what she meant by that. But we do know that she is saying you need to do something. You need to show him that you are there. Now, I know, and I am a proponent, that we tell our daughters that they need to be pursued, that they need to, let a man pursue them. But I also think that sometimes men, trying to think of a nice way, just need a little kick in the pants sometimes. just need to know, okay, yes, we do. Mark is here today. He missed the last week that I talked all about him. So I will say, when Mark and I were first getting together, which, like I said, watch last week's and you'll know the whole story. But this is in between the hair time when he took his hat off and the chicken wing time. So I had not yet seen his talent with the chicken wing, but I had seen the long hair. So we were at our family camp, and at our family camp, if you haven't ever been to that, he was in charge of the youth at that time, and I was in charge of the children at that time. So we only had, I think it was maybe a 10 or 11 o'clock service that we were in charge of, and the rest of the time we could go to services, but just kind of hang out, whatever we wanted. His house was very close, so we would have a group of people that we would go hang out at his house too. So I had just come back at the beginning of that summer from a year as a missionary in Bolivia. And I went to every camp that summer. And at the end of family camp, I was moving to Marion, Indiana, which at that time was about a 3-hour drive from where our camp was. My car was loaded. All my belongings were in my car. I was going to be leaving camp, moving into our new house, and starting at my new job on Monday morning. My plan was to leave on Saturday. That would give me, a whole day, a couple days, unpack, get things ready, and start my new job. Well, cute little Mark Hurt was like, oh, why don't you just stay till Sunday morning? Because, as I had said last week, he was a youth pastor there in town, and he had just gotten a new senior pastor. And that pastor was going to be there at the camp on Sunday morning. So he said, I really want you to meet my new pastor. I was like, okay. Sunday morning, I can go to service, I can do that, I can meet the pastor, and then I'll head out. That'll still give me, almost a whole day to unpack, get ready for my job. After service, why don't you just stay for lunch? Just stay for lunch with me. It's like, remember, I will say he had cut his hair at this point. So it was still hard, not as hard as it would have been, but it was still hard. So I stayed for lunch. We talked to lunch, and he was like, well, why don't you just stay for evening service? It's just one more service. Camp will be over. Everybody will be leaving. So I stayed for the evening service. And after the evening service, I was like, I have to leave. I have a 3-hour drive, and I have to unpack, and I have to be at my new job in less than 12 hours. I have to leave. So I won't ever forget, there's a big tabernacle is what we called it. It was kind of like, where all the services were. And there was like a big slide. It was almost kind of like a big barn. And there was a sliding door. And, we kind of ruled the camp. We thought we did, so we could drive all over the grass and things. So I had driven up to the door that opened, the big kind of barn door that you could see into the tabernacle. And I do remember his mom kind of parked right in front of me at the same time. I don't know if she was blocking me in or if that's just where she was, but I could see into the tabernacle. And if you remember the name Jamie from last week, Jamie was an ex-girlfriend of Mark's who just in the last 4 or 5 years wrote me an apology note, but that's just a little side. That's because in case she watches this, we're good. So I look into the tabernacle and I see him talking to Jamie, and I'm like, I'm out. I waited this long. I got to start. He's talking to his ex-girlfriend. I'm out. I'm done with this. And so his roommate comes up, and he's like, Mark would be so sad if you walked away, if you drove and you didn't say goodbye to him. And I was like, well, it doesn't look that sad because he's over there talking to Jamie. So somehow I'm assuming his roommate went and told him everything. So he comes running out, and I was like, you were talking to Jamie. It's fine, whatever you want. And I just looked at him and I said, I love you as a friend. I love you as more than that. We are, I just looked at him and I said, you need to decide what you want right now. Either way, I'm fine, but you need to decide what you want. And he just looked at me and he said, I want you. So we were engaged like 2 months later and married in less than a year. But sometimes you have to, as a woman, you have to, even in relationships, even if you're married, even if you've been married forever, sometimes you just have to kind of wake them up a little bit. And so that is what we're going to say, even though it was a very strange way to do it. We're going to say that is what Naomi was telling Ruth to do. That Boaz was caught up possibly in, all of his work, all of the stuff that was going on, and he just needed this little reminder that she was there. Now, sometimes the Bible is descriptive, and sometimes it is prescriptive. So this is a time when it's prescriptive, when it writes and tells us what to do. It gives us, different ideas, different kind of, I don't want to use the word rules, but like that, things to follow, precepts to follow. Sometimes it's just descriptive. It just tells us what happened. And this is one of those times. It's just telling us what happened. It's not telling us, those of you that are young girls in here, that if you are interested in someone, to go lie down next to them and tell them that you'll do whatever they say. And also make sure they're a little drunk. Do not do that. That is not what we are doing. But It's describing it. And I love that the Bible does that. I love that the Bible describes when people do stupid, crazy things. Because I don't know about you, but in my life, I do ridiculous things all of the time. I get it wrong so many more times than I get it right. So I love that the Bible shows when people get it wrong and God still works through them. So even if you don't get it right, God can still make it right. And that's right there in your bulletin. If you don't get it right, God can make it right. And I think that that is a great promise for us. Now, it doesn't give us permission to not follow God and just do whatever we want. But it shows us that when we do something wrong, even if our intentions, I think Naomi's intentions were good for Ruth, that God can use that mess that we make and use it for his good. Okay, we're going to keep going, and I'm telling you, it's going to get weirder. So we're going to look at verses 7 through 9. When Boaz has finished eating and drinking, and he was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. So just like her mother-in-law had told her. In the middle of the night, something startled the man, probably the woman laying at his feet. He turned and he said, "There was a woman laying at his feet. Who are you?" he asked. Now remember, this is dark and at night. So even though he knows who Ruth is, it would be hard to see her in the evening. "I am your servant Ruth," she said. "Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of the family." Now, we've talked about this for the last couple weeks. A guardian redeemer is a relative who had both the responsibility and the privilege to provide for a family member in a time of need. So it was a legal responsibility, but it was also a privilege to be able to provide for them. So Boaz, he is potentially a distant guardian redeemer. He's not a direct brother of Elimelech, who was the father-in-law that passed away. When Ruth says this, she could be saying, "I want you to cover me with a spiritual covering." She's saying, "Will you be my guardian redeemer? Will you cover me with, financially? Will you cover me spiritually? Will you take care of me?" And just like we hope that Naomi was thinking, Boaz treats Ruth honorably. He respects her purity. Nothing happens that night. And how do we know? Because in verse 11, it reads, "And now, my daughter," this is Boaz talking to her, "don't be afraid. I will do all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character." So we talked a couple weeks ago about all those things that he saw in Ruth, and this is one of the things that he saw, that she was a woman of noble character. Remember that a widow, a young widow of her age, usually would sell themselves in prostitution at that time rather than going to work in the fields. But he saw she went to go work in the fields, and he saw that she was a woman of noble character. So Ruth has declared, she's like, "I'm all in. I'm laying here at your feet. I am all in." And by Boaz saying this, he's saying, "Me too. I am here for you. I am all in too." So now they can get married, live happily ever after, all things are great. No, not yet. Let's look at verses 12 and 13. It reads, although it is true, I am a guardian redeemer of our family. This is still Boaz talking. There is another who is more closely related than I. So stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to do his duty as your guardian redeemer, good. Let him redeem you. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. So there's another obstacle. There is someone that we have not met yet that is a closer relative that is legally bound to be her guardian redeemer. And so before Boaz can claim that and say, yes, I will do it, he has to talk to this other person first. Because with that comes property, comes, Elimelech's, just things that could come from him. We don't know yet exactly what all that is, but it could benefit Boaz slightly in that. So he has to talk to this other person. So next week is where we're going to meet this new kind of person, that triangle. Remember, we're in a rom-com. It kind of comes in a little bit. And we are going to see how Boaz overcomes this obstacle. And I'm just going to go ahead and give it because I'm so excited. Next week, the principle that we're going to look at is if he will do what it takes to get you, he will do what it takes to keep you. And that's really important because some people just like the chase. But we want people that are there for the long haul. So let's just kind of think back. This is the fourth week we've looked at Ruth. What are some of the lessons that we have learned? Because like I said, this is a weird one this week. This isn't one that you're going to take. Like how last week I gave you kind of practical tips that you could take and use in your life. Probably not things this week that you're going to take and use in your life. So what have we learned? First, it's often wise to put yourself in the right place to increase the odds of meeting the right person. In your mom's basement, playing video games all day, it's probably not the place that you're going to meet the right person. Just being in your house, going to work and coming home every day, probably not the place you're going to meet the right person. Going with your friends to a strip club after work, probably not the place you're going to meet the right person. So think about the places that you can go if you are looking. And remember, we talked about Ruth and Boaz obviously is focused on relationships. But think about this with friendships too, especially as we get older. Some of us have a hard time finding friendships. This is the same thing. Those of you that are younger, same thing. Put yourself in places that you can find the right people to be around. Don't overlook those who are right in front of you. Sometimes the best friendships, the best relationships come in the strangest ways, just people that you would have never thought of before. Sometimes you may have to go after what you want. Sometimes you might have to be a little bold. Even if you don't get it right, remember that God can still make it right. He can use our mess. That's why I love that video that we did this morning. I chose that because so many of us have just messed up, but each one of us is so special and so important to God that He uses us in so many different ways. Finally, if you want a marriage, this is if you're looking to get married or you are already married in a relationship. If you want a marriage that honors God in the future, live a life that honors God today. You're not going to wake up one day and be like, oh, everything is great. I'm going to honor God now. No, you have to keep pursuing that daily. So spiritually, Boaz wants to be her guardian redeemer. Now, Boaz is not obligated. Remember, he's kind of far out, so he is not legally obligated to be her guardian redeemer. He was not a brother of her husband or of her father-in-law. She was a Moabite. She wasn't even an Israelite. So really, this law, even if he was legally bound, it wouldn't even be to her. It would be to Naomi, because she's not even an Israelite. But because he loved her, he chose to go above and beyond and sacrifice for her. Ruth's very first decision, and the thing that affected her life the most, was her decision to leave Moab, to leave that false god behind, to follow her mother-in-law, to start following the true God. Boaz's number one decision was to commit to Ruth. Now, I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert, because just like Joe did, you can read this. It's in your Bible. You can read and see what happened next. But their marriage, like I said, spoiler alert, actually results in a son named Obed. And Obed is in the lineage of our Savior, our guardian redeemer, who is Jesus Christ. And so we have this Moabite woman who came from a city that God said, they sacrifice their children. Do not go around them. Do not be with them. And we had a family who did wrong, who went completely against what God had said, married a Moabite woman. She came back, but God redeemed her. God redeemed her family and made her in the lineage of Jesus Christ. And just in the same way that we can think of Boaz as her guardian redeemer, Jesus is our guardian redeemer. He has no legal obligation to anything that he has done. That we, just like Ruth, we don't deserve anything. She was a Moabite. She didn't deserve anything. We have all sinned. And just like Romans said, we have fallen short of his glory and his righteousness. And he doesn't have to do anything for us. But because of the love that he has for us, he's seen us with dirty fingernails. He's seen us coming from the field. We don't have to wear perfume and get all, fixed up for him. He knows who we are. And he is our guardian redeemer. So I'm going to ask you today, and I know this is going to sound really cheesy, but I want you just to think about this. I want you to go back and think about that soft launch and that hard launch that we looked at. Some of us, I feel like, that we are caught up in this soft launch with Jesus. That, we might put on social media a verse, or we might, show a picture of an event that we did at church. Or we might, lay our Bible on our desk at work. Or we might tell somebody, oh, I'm going to pray for you. It's kind of this soft launch that we're spiritual people. We might, they might know that we have a nativity at Christmas. It's this soft launch. Nobody really knows exactly where you are with Jesus. Well, the first thing that you have to do is define your relationship with Jesus. Where are you with him? Do you think he's just an historical figure that, was kind of cool and has good stories to learn about? Or is he your Savior? Is he your guardian redeemer? Is he the one that you're going to put all your trust in and all your faith in, and know that no matter how much you screw things up, that he is going to be there for you? And I'm going to tell you, like I said, this is going to be cheesy, but I am going to challenge you to do a hard launch of your relationship with Jesus. And what I mean by that is, don't just have people think you're spiritual or that sometimes you go to church. Tell people about Jesus Christ. Tell people about your guardian redeemer. Tell them your story. Everybody's story is messed up. Nobody has a perfect story except for Jesus. If we had a perfect story, we wouldn't need him. Tell people about how he saved you. Tell people about how he is your spiritual covering. Don't shy away from that. During our Dream Team service this morning, we talked about, there were so many people that talked about people at their work that needed God and that we were praying for and had all these different things. I believe that each one of us is put into our work, into our family, into the Walmart line that we're supposed to be in for a purpose. So let people know about Jesus and who he is to you. Will you guys pray with me, please? God, first of all, we just want to thank you. We want to thank you that you are our guardian redeemer. And we want to thank you for how much you love us. We want to thank you that just like Ruth and Naomi, that if we do ridiculous things, if we mess up, whether we mean to or not, that we know if we follow you and we have faith in you and we trust you, that you will make things good for us. There might be consequences for our actions, but that you want the best for us and you want to redeem us back to who you created us to be. Help us this week as the days go by, just to help us first define our relationship with you, make sure that we know who you are to us. And then second, that we hard launch that relationship, that we tell people about you and use your name and use our story to bring people closer to you. Thank you for everything that you've given us and everything that you do for us. We love you so much. In your name, amen.